Welcome to our very first online Senior School Expo. Welcome to any potential new parents and families who may be considering Lourdes as an option for high school, and also to any of our parents in the junior school. We hope that tonight you'll have the opportunity to be able to explore the wide range of opportunities from Year 7 to 12, not just in curriculum, but also pastoral care. At Lourdes, we really focus on the whole child and understanding who they are intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I also hope that throughout this evening, you'll have the opportunity to get to know some of the high quality staff that we have here at Lourdes, who will be walking alongside and guiding your child throughout the middle and senior school. At Lourdes, we have a big focus on the big three questions. What would you like to create? What problems would you like to solve? And how would you like to serve the community? I hope that throughout this expo, you'll have the opportunity to see how those three questions are answered by the quality of the programs that we offer here at Lourdes. God bless you everyone, and thank you so much for joining us.
Because there's more
to explore at Lourdes.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name's Stephen Huth. I'm the Secondary School Coordinator at Lourdes. We're delighted to have you joining us tonight, and we'll also be delighted to have you send through any questions that you might have for us. If you have a look just below this live screen, you'll see that there's a form to submit your questions through.
G'day everyone, I'm Laura Robbins. I'm the Pastoral Care Coordinator here in the Senior School. Alternatively to the form online, you could also email questions through to our Registrar Lisa Martin at lisa.martin@lourdes.qld.edu.au with your questions, and she'll pass them through to us this evening for us to answer. Should we not have enough time to answer all questions, please be assured that a staff member will make contact with you in the next few days.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy Dyer. I'm the Pathways Coordinator in the Senior School. Also wanting to let you know that you'll find lots of information with lots of short videos on the webpage which cover off many of the aspects in the middle and senior school. So that's years 7 to 12.
We hope that you will send through lots of questions to us tonight. We are eager to answer any that you might have for us, but we've already got a few. And so here's our first question. The first question is for the panel: if you were back at school, what would be your favourite elective and why? For me, I think my favourite elective in the current climate would probably be something along the lines of STEM. I love the project-based learning there. I like not knowing what the answer is going to be and having to really work it out, but using that cool robotics stuff and getting in and building things and finding solutions by using digital technology is really interesting for me. I'd love to learn that stuff.
Good one. So for me, my teaching started as a HPE teacher, so HPE is absolutely the elective that I would go for. I miss it, I enjoy playing it, I enjoy getting out there with the students on Thursday afternoon sport when I can, so that would absolutely be my elective.
Good question. My friends and family would say I should choose hospitality because domestic skills and cooking is not my forte, and I would like hospitality, but I would probably go with modern history. I love people. I think history is all about understanding people and our place in the great scheme of things, so I would love to get into some modern history.
Nice.
We have another question. What if you start an elective and decide early on that you don't like it? Can you change? Yes, you can change an elective early on. We normally have about a 2-week window. We like students to have a go at the electives that they've chosen, because sometimes they'll get to the very first lesson and make a very quick judgment about whether it's the elective that suits them or not. And actually, if they try it out for a few more days, go to a few more lessons and experience it, then they'll find that they actually like it. Sometimes students put in change of elective forms and I may not get to it to a couple of days, and by the time I come back to the student and say, okay, let's talk about this change of elective, they say, no, I'm actually really enjoying it, I want to stay in it. But we do let students change if they're in the wrong elective, and this is right up through until right up till year 11. So students, if they're in the wrong elective, we really do like them to find one that fits them. Our mantra is always things that you like and things that you're good at. And so if students are in a subject that's just not working for them, then yes, we do have opportunities for them to look at other things.
Just to add to that, I think with electives right through up until year 11, it's really important that students trial the different electives. So they may not be sure what the elective is, they might not be sure if they like it, but we would encourage you to try those electives in those earlier years so that you can be really sure by the time you get to year 11 and 12 that you're in the right electives and that you're following your interest areas and your passions, and that you've done the preparation to make sure that you've made a really informed decision for your senior school subjects.
Absolutely.
Amy, this might be a good question for you as well.
Yes.
I don't know what I want to do after I finish year 12, so how will I know what electives to choose?
Well, I get that one all the time. So I start to meet with the students roughly around year 9 or 10, depending on what they're looking at talking about and what they're needing through their senior years. But I often get told, what do I do? I don't know what electives to choose because I don't know what I'm going to do when I finish school. So my best advice there is that the best way to make sure that you keep all your options open for the end of year 12 so that you can go on to do either employment or further study or go off to university is to concentrate on things like your English and maths. So making sure you're in the right maths and the right English. So that's the maths that you can do well, and that you've got a proven record in. And that can be something that can be discussed with your maths teacher, the heads of department, or myself. So English and maths are really important. In year 11, if you can do a science, certainly that's going to help with a lot of the courses that you might want to do if you're headed off to uni. But the rest of the subjects, we really encourage you to do things that you enjoy, that you can do well at, that you are passionate about, because it's really important for you to leave year 12 still with a passion for learning. We want you to be in subjects that you really feel engaged in, that you can want to challenge yourself in, because the key to a successful year 11 and 12 is to want to go further and to want to turn that knowledge into something else, whether it be employment or further study. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. We have another question. By the way, just a reminder that if you want to submit a question, click on the button just down below this window where it says submit an inquiry, book a tour, enrol now. You can click on those buttons, but also if you want to actually have a question come through to us, if you want to email lisa.martin@lords.qld.edu.au, that would be a great way to get those questions through to us. Have we got any questions coming through, Mrs. Martin?
We do have a question. It's in regard to those children going into year 10, just asking in regard to going into TAFE, enrolling in TAFE. Do they have to already be 15 in January at the beginning of year 10, or do they need to wait until they're 15 for mid-year enrolment if they're doing a TAFE certificate?
Okay, I can take that. So the funding that the government provides to students is called VETAS funding, which is vocational education and training in schools. So that funding is available to any students who are 15 or in year 10. So if you've already turned 15 and you're in year 10, that's fine, but as long as you are currently a year 10 enrolled student, if you haven't yet turned 15, you do have access to that funding. And that's something that I'm very happy to talk to students about, to discuss pathways and how TAFE might work for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got a question about homework. Can you give guidelines on how many hours of homework study a student should be doing in high school and how many times a week? We've got some guidelines around what we recommend in terms of homework for students in the up until year 10, and then after year 10, heading year 11 and 12, things become a bit, it depends a lot on what pathway students are on as to how much homework they need to be doing. During year 7, we're aware that students have come from, some have come from our own school, some have come in from other schools, and there are different requirements around homework. So we're not expecting an enormous amount of homework to be done in Year 7 and Year 8. We would like it if students can be doing regular homework and study, but we're not looking for hours and hours every night. We would probably think by the end of Year 8, students should be in a habit of doing maybe an hour a night, something like that, and probably about 4 or 5 times a week. Some of that is in the form of like modules that they're doing for maths or completing activities that they might have done during the day at school. Sometimes it's working on assessment, and sometimes it's just studying and revising things that they've learned in class. Obviously, as students are heading into Year 9 and 10, the work becomes more complex. Sometimes it can require more consolidation at home. It can require them to do wider reading. They can spend more time doing assessment tasks. And so by that stage, we're probably looking at students getting more up around an hour and a half. Possibly the more diligent students or the ones who have high aspirations for heading on to tertiary education might be wanting to start getting towards a couple of hours, about 4 or 5 times a week. Once we get to Year 11 and 12, there's a lot more options for students, and the work looks very different for them depending on what they're doing. Mrs. Martin used a great analogy the other day talking about return on investment and was talking about, you know, the more time you invest, the more you get out of your study. So obviously the students who have aspirations to go into some of the more highly competitive university courses, they might need to be doing up around 2 to 3 hours for maybe 4 or 5 times a week, but sometimes students can be doing far less than that, depending on how effectively they're doing their study during the day. Obviously, if they are really studying hard during the day, they're working hard, they're listening to their teachers, they may not need to do as much consolidation. So it's that return on investment thing. How many of these sessions a week? Probably, I mean, students might do 3 or 4 sessions during the week, because obviously students have got things like sporting games and things that they're involved in on the weeknights, and we can't be expecting students to be giving up every night to be doing heaps of homework, and we do certainly encourage kids to be doing study, but we want them to be doing sport, scouts, youth group, dancing, all those sorts of things as well.
I think balance is really important.
It is.
Can't just be school and study sometimes. I think it's important to have a bit of balance with other activities and catch-ups with friends and those sorts of things. So yeah, I agree.
It's obviously a thing. There's always been this discussion around kids leaving things to the last minute and leaving and trying to get it all done then. That's always going to be something that's not as successful as someone who's able to put in smaller amounts of time more regularly, and that's always going to see kids succeed better. So sometimes kids find themselves completely overwhelmed, but it's because they've left things and haven't been working regularly on them. So committing time, smaller amounts of time more regularly is always going to work better, I think.
Can I just add to that, Stephen? So as you progress through the year levels, study can look really different. So I think that in the early years, the homework that you do is essentially what they call study. So if a teacher has set a lesson or an activity for you to do, then students will go home and they will do that, and then that will be all. But as the years progress and as the workload gets bigger and more in-depth, it's a lot more about revision. So it might be coming home and doing your set homework and then allocating another set amount of time to revise a maths question, to practice something else, to read your English novel, to read through your notes from your history lesson or whatever it might be. But it becomes a combination of homework and then that initiation or self-motivation of being able to look at your subjects, see what's coming up, getting yourself organised, getting yourself ready for things that are coming so that it doesn't all sort of come in together with assessments and assignments all due within that week, and starting to learn how to structure and plan your time to take all of that into consideration.
Absolutely. Homework is not a life skill, but being organised and knowing how to plan things and knowing how to actually allocate time appropriately, that is life skills. And I know as an adult, I still do that. So we don't set homework as busy work because we're teachers and we love kids doing homework. we set things that we know are going to help our young people to succeed. And I think that a big learning that we see here in the secondary school for our young people is this idea of learning how to be independent learners and manage their time and study effectively. And even with Mr. Huth, you know, giving some sort of time allocations for study, which I think is really important, but also it's often a trap for young people of saying, Mr. Huth or Mrs. Turner or whoever has said, you know, I should be doing 2 hours a night, get into the room, set up their study space, maybe the phone's there, a few other things are there, all of a sudden you're watching the clock, 2 hours have passed, and actually it hasn't been a very effective use of time because you've been doing a lot of sort of paper shuffling.
Yeah.
Well,
So
half an hour of really quality study could be
Totally.
worth 2 hours of distracted study.
Totally. So really working with our young people to understand how to effectively study and manage their time is really important. And I know Mr. Huth in particular does lots of study skills sessions with our young people because also it's not helpful to just say to your child or for us to say to our students, you need to study more. If young people actually don't know what does that actually look like and how do I study well? And I know that's where Stephen's sessions come in really helpful for our young people.
But the thing at year 11 and 12 is that sometimes for some students, there actually isn't a great deal of homework and study to be done, depending on what their pathway is. The very academic kids who are really wanting to shoot high and go for very challenging courses that require very good ATAR scores are obviously going to have to invest a lot of time.
Yep.
But students who are working on different pathways can find themselves not actually feeling like they're doing study or homework anyway, they're actually just doing their course. And so they're doing the work, but they don't really think of it as homework or study. It's just, I'm doing my diploma work, or I'm out on the job site doing my carpentry
That's
work,
right.
or I am doing my sport traineeship. And so they don't actually feel like it's study and homework anyway. So
Agreed.
depending on the pathway, depends on what their study and homework time allocation would look like anyway.
Yeah, agreed.
So it really does depend a lot on what pathways students are on as to how much work they need to do.
Totally.
I think we've got another question there. Will there be an option for studying film and television at Lord's in their senior years? We've got a number of options there. We obviously have students doing, within their courses, within English, within drama and Christian studies, there are lots of opportunities for students to make films, because film is one of the ways that students can present the knowledge that they've learned about different topics. And so they do sometimes show their ability to construct a narrative by filming, by creating a short film. And they do that in English, for example. Christian studies and drama see students creating, different sorts of films and things at different times. But we also have some great opportunities for students to be doing film and TV courses through TAFE. Do you want to talk a little bit about the TAFE Media Set 3 option?
Well, there's a lot of different opportunities in that creative industry space. So TAFE offer a lot of things like design and like graphics, photo imaging, film and television, sound and audio. There's a lot of scope that TAFE have to offer. A lot of our students are definitely following those pathways, and they are doing sort of Certificate 2s and Certificate 3s in that area. So I find that the TAFE program is a really hands-on, practical way in which to learn. They have fully set up studios where the students are engaged. Sometimes the students who are doing Cert 3 qualifications are actually put onto different events, and that's where they can practice their skills as well. So in terms of that certificate study, if you wanted to go down that film and television pathway, TAFE and other different learning providers that we'll talk about at another time, but they really have a great space and a great learning environment in which to practice those skills.
And we also have some other options too, because we can have students doing distance education. And we've got a number of students who've done distance ed courses for subjects that they would like to do, and we're able to find a provider who's able to offer that to them, and they're able to have some time off from their subjects here. We give them a study line, and they're able to then use that time to complete their work online, and lots of options for that. And I think that TAFE offer those 2-week film making programs on the holidays
Yeah,
as
they
well,
do.
which are really good.
Yeah, so TAFE do a lot of short workshops, but they're also through a lot of other different private providers as well. So SAE Institute, JMC Academy, I think it's the New York Film Academy. They're all local, and they do a really good job with doing small workshops if students really want to just get a bit of a taste about what the industry's like and what can be done in that for that pathway in a career. Yeah, Lisa.
We do have a question here in regard to a Year 7 student. Just wondering what the electives are going to be for 8 and 9. Might be a time to let people know how to access
Very
our
good.
elective program.
Great segue,
Great
Mrs. Martin.
timing.
So, on the website now, we've got a number of print resources that we've developed to talk about to showcase, I guess, what we're offering next year in terms of all of our electives from Year 8 through to Year 12. In Year 7, there's a rotation program. We find that students come in from Year 6. They've tried some of these subjects, but they're still not really sure what's involved in a subject called civics and citizenship, and they're not really sure what the pathways are going to be. They may not understand that civics is actually a pathway into legal studies later on. So what we really want them to do in Year 7 is to try each of the electives that's on offer. And so we rotate them through. They do a term on each of 8 different electives. And so they're able to have make a much more informed decision later on.
Yep.
In terms of Year 8 and 9, our elective program is outlined in this booklet, which is the Year 8 and 9 elective program for 2021. It talks a lot about the structure of the program and why we've chosen these particular electives, but it also then has a section where it talks about the line structure and how to choose electives on line 1 and line 2. It talks about the choice or the decisions that we'd like, or the factors we'd like children to consider when they're choosing their electives in terms of pathways and where they're thinking they might head at some point. And then there's also a description in the booklet of what each different elective covers and which core area it falls under. And so you'll find that within the business area, we've got 2 different electives, one called Scams and Dodgy Deals, and the other one's called The World's Your Oyster. And so they're both under the business area. And so students can choose one or both of those electives, depending on what their pathways are. And obviously in Year 8 and 9, it's about trying things out, having a taste, seeing if it fits. Do the Year 8 year, try out 4 electives through that year, see if they work. If they're feeling like they're the right sort of thing, students can do another elective in that option the next year, or they can try something different. So that's all outlined in this booklet, and we spend a little bit of time talking with the students in Year 7 and Year 8 towards the end of the year so that they know what these electives are about and how to go about choosing them.
Question. Beside TAFE options, are there opportunities for work experience coming up for years 10 to 12? Obviously this year's been a little bit different.
I'll take that. Yeah, unfortunately, COVID meant that we weren't able to continue with our work experience program this year, which is really disappointing because it is such a valuable experience and we've created such amazing relationships with the community and workplaces in our local area, and we've had such great feedback from our employers for the students that have been working there, and also great feedback from the parents and the students who've really found that the week has been a great experience for them. But moving forward, we absolutely are planning on that work experience program coming through. All going well, we'll be back to normal next year. So we offer it to our Year 10s, and that is offered in the final week of Term 2. We do a lot of preparation with the students and work with them to help them know what it means to be in a workplace, what would be the expectations of you in a day, what sort of things you can do if you feel as though you sort of don't have a job to do at any given time, how to continue to develop that relationship with your employer. So we do a lot of work with the students, and certainly we've had students placed in many, many different industries. So we've had people at museums, at journalism, like Gold Coast Bulletin, veterinary surgeries, childcare,
Bakeries and cafes.
IT. There really hasn't been an industry that hasn't been touched. A lot of students will be able to reach out to someone they know or through a network where they've been able to touch base with someone who's willing to take them on. But it's very common for employees to be very happy to bring on a student, and quite often students will often create opportunities for part-time or casual work with those employers if they've really set a great example. So,
and even some offers for traineeships
absolutely.
and school-based apprenticeships that come out of those as well.
Yeah, so if your student is looking at TAFE and they're looking for an employer, they might offer to do work experience with their local cafe, and at the end of that week, they might be able to approach that employer to say, hey, any chance of a school-based apprenticeship? And if they've had a great week and the employer and the student are both happy, that's certainly something that we can facilitate and get students out of school one day a week and working and being paid for that day. And on top of that, receive a certificate qualification in something like business or hospitality, depending on which way the employer wants to go.
And some of the registered training organisations that we work with as well offer one-day taster type courses
Yeah.
too. So TAFE have got a taster program where kids can try out automotive and try out electrical and try out carpentry, but then there's other places that also offer a one-day trial or a one-week trial
Absolutely.
for kids. And we also have students who want to do work experience at different times. Sometimes they want to work over their holidays, or they're not sure what they want to do, and they found the work experience week to be so rewarding that they want to do it again. And so we can actually organise the paperwork for them to do work experience at other times as well.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with work experience with our students. We have one student in Year 12 who's done an amazing job to secure a school-based apprenticeship, and he really wanted to work in the industry, found some work experience. We let him work with that employer one day a week, and by the end of that term, he was offered a full-time, a school-based apprenticeship, and he's very happy now working in that industry, and that will be the career he follows. So there's been a lot of great outcomes from the experience, and we look forward to bringing it back next year.
Thanks so much for those questions. Please keep them rolling in using the online form or by emailing Lisa Martin. The next question is a really exciting one. What new facilities will be available in the next few years at Lords for the secondary school? This is super exciting, particularly the first point, which excites me greatly, and that is new handball courts. We know our young people love playing handball, and I know that one of the best parts of my day is walking around the campus and lunchtime and just seeing our young people come together and play handball. They take it very seriously, and we've well and truly listened to student voice and to student behaviour of this is what we enjoy doing. So we have some new handball courts that will be popping up. These projects are hopefully being completed over the next couple of years.
We actually got some new handball courts just over the holidays.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. We also have a new science lab that will be happening as well, which will be wonderful to have our young people being able to use all the latest lab technology and equipment to do their science work for the sciences that we have here at Lords. Additional bathrooms, which is always a really good thing and an important thing for a growing community. We're going to have a new student resource hub, where I think a lot of good learning is going to be able to happen in contemporary ways. Where it's going to both encourage really strong independent learning, but also great collaborative spaces for students to work in teams and meet together and mentor one another and learn together. A new car park shelter in the main car park, which will be very good and very appreciated for the sun and for the rain. A new HPE building. And in the junior school, we're also going to have a new junior school building and playground. Like I said, these are happening over the next 2 years. I know Ms. Hoff likes to say we're just an ongoing construction site, which comes with us being a new school and a growing school, which means it has its challenges when getting around the place, but it's super exciting and really exciting to see that we're going to have additional facilities built over the next couple of years.
Yeah, it looks good.
Thanks, Laura. We've got another question here about the sports that are played in the secondary school at Lords. We've got a great AGCC competition which has been very challenged this year by the COVID crisis.
Yep.
We would usually have a lot of sport being played on Thursday afternoons against a lot of other Gold Coast schools, and that's kind of our main competitive sport competition each year. We've got 2 rounds, one in term 2 and then one in term 3, which leads on a little bit into term 4, and the students travel off and play at different schools in a huge range of sports, and so they've got an opportunity to play things like futsal, touch football, in both, and a lot of these are both boys and girls teams, depending on what season it is. There might be, for example, touch football for the boys in the first season, and then the girls play in the second one. And some of them are even mixed teams. So there's mixed teams for netball and for a few of the other games as well. But we've got OzTag, netball, tennis, volleyball, basketball, AFL, soccer, indoor cricket. And then we've also got some other sports that the students are able to play in outside of that AGCC competition. So we've got a netball comp that the girls play in on Saturday mornings, and that's in Monday nights actually. And we've got some other kind of occasional competitions, gala day type things, where students will go off and they'll play for a full day. They might play 3 or 4 games, and they're playing off to gradually work out which team gets the Guernsey on the day. And they're in sports like basketball and futsal and volleyball.
I'll just add to that, obviously we support district sport, and we hopefully are able to send students off to state and regional competitions if they qualify for that, which is great.
In the athletics and swimming?
In athletics, swimming and cross country. And we are also part of Lutheran competitions as well, and that's both in the junior and senior school. And just to mention, Mr. Huth, the AGCC competition that happens on a Thursday afternoon in school time.
Yes.
So
the students travel off in buses, and some students come here.
Yeah.
And the schools basically share their sports facilities so that the students have got access to, a really great set of basketball courts, because this school's got a basketball focus, and so they've got some great facilities there, and then this school's got some great futsal facilities, and so they're really getting some access to some great competition.
Agreed. Yep. Very good.
Okay, there's another question here regarding certificates and diplomas. So I've heard that certificates and diplomas can help achieve your ATAR score and maybe even improve it. Should I factor this into my child's education and subject choices?
That is a very good
Great question,
Laura, and I'm glad you asked.
Thank you.
That is a great question because it is so individual to each student. So for many students, they know that they want to get an ATAR because they want to basically get the most direct path into university, and I would always suggest those that are able to get an ATAR should go for that. But that is absolutely not for everybody. So that is why we have an equal emphasis, because we truly believe in the individual student. So that means if you are academic and wanting to pursue that ATAR pathway, then go for it. If you are a practical learner and want to go out and grab a trade or be a hairdresser or go and experience something in screen and media or health services or any number of different areas out there that are offered by these training organisations, then we absolutely support that, and we build that into your senior program. We do a lot of meetings, which I'll probably get into later, but we do a lot of meetings that start in year 10, and that is where we sit down with every student and we just say, what is it that you're looking to do? Here are both the pathways. Is there one in particular that looks like it suits you better than another? And then once I get to know the student and understand what they're interested in, what their interests are, what their skills are, then we can start getting a little bit more specific into different certificates, traineeships or apprenticeships, if that's the way we all decide is the best way forward. Now, it is a bit tricky to talk about how our certificates can contribute to ATARs because different universities and tertiary institutions see them very differently, so that's why these one-on-one conversations are really important. But generally speaking, a certificate 3 or higher will give you an equivalent ATAR. It doesn't give you an ATAR like you would if you'd gone through that pathway, but it does give you what we call an equivalent ATAR, which some universities will use for direct entry into their courses if you meet their cut-offs. A lot of students go this way. Some blend their pathway and they get an ATAR and they get a certificate, and then from there they can work out which one's going to score higher at the end of year 12, and then that's the pathway they can use for their university or tertiary entry. So there's certainly a lot of conversations that I'd love to have with all of you about how we can factor that in, but it's definitely individual to each student.
There's so many options, opportunities and pathways now in contemporary education.
Absolutely.
And I sometimes sit here and I go, gee, I wish it was like that when I was at school, and we're not even that old,
No,
right?
we're really young.
But I understand the challenge for parents of being, well, it wasn't like that when we were at school.
Absolutely.
It doesn't actually, your child's education doesn't have to play out like yours did. There are so many more options and opportunities and pathways, and that's what I think the blessing of having Amy Dyer at school is she meets with so many families and just talks through the options, and parents often go, I had no idea
Absolutely.
that was even possible, and that if plan A, and very often plan A doesn't work out, that's actually okay, because there's a plan B here that we can scoop up and
you
work
guys don't
on.
have to come up with those plans. That I actually
Correct.
really enjoy doing that. I really enjoy working through the different pathways with the families and the students. I love it when the parents get involved. I love it when mums and dads are there. Because these conversations aren't just the 45-minute session that I have with you. These conversations occur over and over. They occur over the dinner table. They occur in car, driving to and from different places, and
Walking down a concrete path between buildings, between subjects.
they happen all the time. So I am a huge advocate of parents getting involved in all of these meetings, because you guys are, on the flip side, advocating for your child, and I'm sure you all want the best for them. And knowing what I've been able to talk to your students about means that you're also able to have those informed conversations with your students. And if they can go into year 10, 11 and 12 knowing all the options and being sure that that's the right way forward, then 100% we've done our job well, because those students are able to really embrace their decisions. They're able to really take on board the fact that they have now taken control of their education. They've done that through good research, good support, good informed decision making, and from there they can go on to do whatever they want. So, as I said, I'm a bit nervous about talking about how qualifications like certificates can be used instead of an ATAR, because, as I said, it's a very individual discussion, but certainly that is the case at times, and that's something that we can talk more about.
Well, I think the other thing with it is this is an emerging area, because ATAR is new this year. It's the first time we've done it. The rules around the new Queensland Certificate of Education are also all very new.
They are.
And how things like ATAR scores are going to be calculated has been affected also
Absolutely.
by the COVID virus and by doing online learning and removing some assessment tasks. So the way that Certificate 3s and diplomas and advanced certificates also are going to factor into ATARs is still an unknown. We're still waiting to find out, and until the first round of students goes through, and we have the first round of students go through and complete all of the assessment tasks, we're still not sure. So the universities are kind of releasing information at the moment about what happens for this year, and the students who are applying for university for next year. But then the year after that, that will probably be different as well. And so it's kind of a watch this space. But there are so many opportunities for students to do so many different things. When I went through, and when a lot of parents went through, it would have been two things. You either stay at school and go to university, or you finish and you do a trade, or and really that was it. And the people who were going into the trades, the understanding was kind of, you probably won't ever go to university because you'll be on the trade path or you're on the university path. But now there are so many ways for students to get into university.
Well, a trade can get you into university.
Absolutely.
The certificate that goes with it. Just to add though, when it comes to ATAR, which is new this year, our first cohort of 12s are going through on the ATAR this year, I think what is a really important point to make is that in the calculation of the ATAR, depending on how we've set it up for you, Certificate 3s or higher can be used in that calculation. So what that's actually saying is, we see value in these certificates. We see students have put hard work into these certificates, and we actually recognise that the work you've put in is equivalent to a subject. And they want to actually acknowledge that through using them as part of ATAR calculations, if that's, as I said, the path we've gone for. So I think there is a stigma that in the past certificates were just for trades, but it's absolutely not the case anymore. It's definitely a choice that you can make to really advance a skill set or an interest area that you have and get some qualifications whilst you're at school.
And we've got some really interesting opportunities that we're exploring at the moment in areas like sampling and lab skills. So
Cool.
for the students who
Yeah.
are on that more scientific pathway, what a great thing to
absolutely.
complement their studies in science.
Yeah.
To be also learning about lab skills, and students can actually pursue, there's a great little pathway for them to do the Cert 3, go into a Cert 4,
Yeah.
keep moving their way through, and move straight into industry pretty much,
Yeah.
and have some time in industry getting some experience there. And those certificate 3s and diplomas and things that are getting used in the ATAR calculation, QTAC have told schools and guidance officers and subject counsellors and pathways coordinators
Well, that's neat.
that they will use them in a way that will get the best possible ATAR. So if a student's going to get a better ATAR by having their 5 general subjects, then they'll use those to get the ATAR. But if a student's doing 5 general subjects and a certificate 3, and it's going to get them a better ATAR by including the certificate 3, then they'll
They'll use
include
that.
that. So
Yeah.
that's a really good thing to know.
Yeah, I think it's this idea of we understand that this is new,
Yeah.
and we understand that it might take more than one conversation for a young person and their parents to get their heads around it, and that's completely okay. And I know, Amy, you have multiple meetings with people.
All day, every day. I
Parents
love
will go away, think
Yeah.
about things, and then
Yeah.
think, oh, I just want to ask this,
Yeah.
or is this what Mrs. Dyer actually meant? And so please know that we're not expecting you to have your heads completely around it. The
Yeah.
first conversation that you have, or the first booklet that you read about it, please keep coming back to us and getting that clarity, which I think will help a
Yep,
lot.
I agree.
They say sometimes it takes 6 times.
There you go, 6 times.
6 times to hear something
Yep.
for it to really sink in.
Can that be
And-
6 times in a row?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are totally okay with that. And we are okay with 8 times
Absolutely.
or 10 times.
Okay.
Because, and we also know that a student can come in and talk to us in year 10,
Yeah.
and this is their career path, and this is absolutely what they want to do,
Oh, that
and they
happens
have
all the
absolutely
time.
no doubt
Yeah.
about it. And so we make all the plans and get everything in
Yeah,
place
yeah,
for that
yeah.
pathway.
Yep.
And then 2 months later, they come in and say, I've changed my mind completely. We understand that that's what kids do, because we were all like
Totally.
that as well.
Totally.
And that's okay.
I
That's
didn't
good.
end up being a paramedic or an architect or an optometrist.
Yep.
And for some of us, we still don't know what we want to do when we grow up.
Correct.
And that's okay. And we understand that with kids. So we're
Yeah.
happy with kids changing pathways, and we're used to kids coming in and saying, I don't want to do that anymore, I want to do something else. And we wipe the board and we start again, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good.
There's another question here.
There is another question here. Please keep the questions coming as
this
well.
me
We're enjoying sharing with you. This is a great question. What is a study line?
Ooh, good one.
Study line is what we offer to students who are doing some sort of coursework outside of school or complementary work in school. So students might be doing, for example, digital solutions.
Yep.
They would really like to do the digital solutions subject, and so they are studying that with distance education. So we would take them out of one of their subjects at school, and they would get that time to study. It is supervised by a teacher, so that they're there to help solve problems for the kids, to help them if they need a little bit of assistance with things. We try and rotate the people who are supervising it so that it'll be supervised by a maths teacher this day and an English teacher this day and a history teacher this day, so the students can get a bit of extra assistance if they need it. But they get that time to use to put into whatever that complementary study course is. It might be that they're doing a school-based apprenticeship or a traineeship or a Cert 3 or the diploma of business that we offer at the school as well. And so students who are doing those get a study line supervised. Sometimes they get 2. We've had some students who are doing 2 courses at the same
Yeah.
time, doing a Cert 2 in animal studies while they're also doing a diploma. And so they
Yeah.
need that little bit of extra time.
We work it out on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
We'll sit down with you as a family and really have a look at your subjects, have a look at what you're doing outside of school, and then work out the best plan for your subjects. But those study lines are a really important time where you can manage that time yourself. No one's going to tell you what you have to do in that lesson. It could be that you're out at TAFE one day and you've got some maths to catch up on or some English to catch up on, or it could be that you've got some modules due for your TAFE course and you can use that time however best suits.
Mrs. Martin, do we have any more questions over there?
I think the next one we've got is how many subjects you needed to pass. Have we just done that one?
To do an ATAR?
No, we're about to do
Yes.
that one.
Yeah,
So
to qualify
to-
for an ATAR.
So the ATAR score is calculated in a number of different ways. The way that is the main way that students would be doing the ATAR is to do what they call general subjects, and they need to do 5. So if a student completes 5 ATAR subjects, then or 5 general subjects, then they'll get their ATAR score. And that's a score between 99.95 and 0. There are 2,000 rungs on that ladder, and students who complete those 5 subjects will have their ATAR calculated based on that. But they can do it in different ways, and this is where Amy Dyer comes in.
I've had these conversations all day, every day with the Year 10s lately, so this is good. So there are a few different pathways, and it really depends on what you're after. And again, that's a real case-by-case basis that we discuss these ideas. But we offer 7 lines here at Lord's, so that would be 7 subjects that your student is studying across Year 11 and 12. One of those is religion and ethics, which everybody does. So there is another 6 other opportunities for you to do your subjects. Of those 6 lines, if you did 6 general subjects, what that means is they're going to take your best 5 in the calculation of an ATAR. So you don't get to choose which one they don't include. That's the job of a really fancy computer.
Mathematician?
Yeah, computer. And basically they will put those 6 subjects in, and it will basically take out the one that least contributes to your best ATAR score. So that's if you're going for the best possible ATAR. If you love hospitality and there's just nothing else on that particular line that you want to do, that's fine, you can do that, which means of the 7 subjects you're doing, 5 will be general and 2 will be applied. That would be hospitality and religion and ethics. And that means they'll likely take your 5 general subjects to calculate your ATAR. So still a really strong possible ATAR out of that one. You can reduce your general subject load to 4 subjects. What that means, however, is that when they calculate an ATAR, they need to use 5. So they'll take those 4 general and then they'll add in your best applied subject or a Cert 3 or higher, whichever one happens to have the most impact on your best possible ATAR. So it's a bit of a sliding scale. You can do the 4 general subjects plus 1 applied, and that applied can be a subject here at school or a certificate. Or a diploma. Anything higher than a Cert 3 will count. You can do the 5 general, or you can do 6 general and have what we call a bit of a safety subject that they can drop when they're doing that ATAR calculation. So hopefully that answers things, and I explained it as simply as I can.
Absolutely. The next question is an interesting one, because I know we've been talking a lot about senior secondary, 10, 11 and 12, and ATAR and pathways and things like that. But what does this actually mean for the middle school and for a young person in 7, 8 and 9 and the subjects that they choose? How does it all marry up? Which I think is a really great observation and question. Ultimately, the question is that my child is going into Year 8 and wants to do electives which have nothing to do with what I believe they will need in their senior years. Isn't it important for them to be studying the same subjects all the way through?
It's a bit like the question about homework.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends on what pathway they're on. So there might be a student who knows by the end of Year 8 that they are a very musical kid, that their pathway is music, and they really, really want to go with music right through to the end of school, or at least at that point in time they believe that that's their pathway. So for a student who's really, really committed to that, they could certainly be choosing music electives right through Year 8 and 9. They can choose music as a specialist subject in Year 10. And then they can take that right on through and do music and music extension. So there is that opportunity for those very focused students who've got a particular passion to follow that passion. And that could be the same as a student who's really, really passionate about building and about doing design technology and design and industrial technology skills, and they really want to pursue that. And so there are electives and ways that they can specialise as they're going through and do those specialist subjects. But we are aware that students don't really understand a lot about what a lot of the subjects are, and that's why we recommend again that students try out subjects if they're not sure what it is. They've never done it before. There is that opportunity for them in Year 8 and Year 9 to try some different subjects and find out if it's a passion that they've never discovered yet. We have students who don't know what Japanese is. We had a student who picked up Japanese as an elective once, hadn't done it ever before, got to Year 9, picked up Japanese and found that it was the subject that she loved more than any other subject. and took it on right through to the end of year 12 and did great in that subject. And if she hadn't tried it out as a, well, I'll just give it a go type subject, she would never have known that.
Yep.
And so I think it is important for kids to try different things, to explore options that they don't know much about, to see if it's something that they've actually got a real talent for.
This idea of taster subjects or taster courses is becoming more and more popular as people are actually
Absolutely.
realising that people need to have an opportunity to explore and decide on some things. And a taster is great, even if you actually think that that's something I do want to do, but then you actually realise, you know what, that's not actually the subject that I thought it was going to be. So it really is important to have a go and have a taste of different subjects and different opportunities.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, Laura, when it comes to students and the electives that they choose, sometimes there's equal amounts of learning in the ones that they do and then they love, as well as the ones that they do and then they've realised they don't enjoy.
Yep.
So, for example, I know I did my work experience when I was in high school in a childcare centre, and that taught me that I only want to work in secondary. So I learned a lot from that experience, and whilst I enjoyed the week, I certainly learnt where my skill set probably is more suited to.
Yep.
And I think that that's the same for a lot of students. That's why we want that taster to happen. That's why we want you to rotate through electives in year 7, and why we've got opportunities for you to go through the electives in 8 and 9. Because knowing what you like and also knowing what you don't like is an equally important strategy in making sure you're on the right pathway moving forward.
Yeah, having that growth mindset, which is something that we talk a lot about here at Lords as well, of going, oh, you know, do I have to do cooking in year 8? You know, I'm not interested in that at all. But having the growth mindset to actually go, I don't think that's my thing, but I'm going to give this a go, is a really important thing, and again, a really important life skill.
Well, it builds resilience.
Totally.
It builds a lot of your character in, look, I don't like it, but I should push through it to the end, and then I won't do hospitality again, but at least I know.
Totally.
There's skill sets that are embedded into the different choices that you make, which aren't necessarily about learning curriculum and being assessed in an exam, but those skills of resilience and confidence and taking on challenges and making mistakes and learning from them. They're all skills that we want our young learners to come out with as well.
Absolutely. Another question?
I've got one.
Yes.
Because we've talked so much about electives and TAFE, and if there's any more questions on that, I'd really be happy to answer any of them. But Laura, as our pastoral care coordinator,
yes,
you work a lot with our students on their social and emotional well-being, which we put a lot of importance on. It is a really important part of who we are here at Lords, to make sure that everyone is not just learning in the classroom, but learning in terms of their social and emotional development. So how does Lords work through a situation if we've got friendship issues between students?
Absolutely, great question. We teach students, but we actually teach people, right? So we don't teach an English student and a maths student. Our approach here at Lords is that we teach young people, and they are multifaceted. And for teenagers in particular, social and emotional stuff is really, really important. And the social side of things will get complicated for your teenager. That's a guarantee. That's life. I think what probably the difference is, or what matters, is how we actually work through that and our approach to it. Here at Lords, our approach to most things, when things get complicated, whether it's a little thing or maybe a bit trickier, is that we actually work through it. We listen to understand, and that's our really our restorative practices model that we have here at Lords. And it's the idea of really sitting back and listening to how other people are feeling and how other people are seeing the particular situation. There's always 2-3 sides to every story. Understanding it, understanding where the harm or where the hurt is, or where the miscommunication or misunderstanding is, and then what do we do to actually make things right? Because that's what makes a strong community, is not that things don't go wrong, because schools are communities full of people. Our school isn't perfect, no school is, because we're full of people, and people aren't perfect. But what we do when something isn't working out how we want it to is the really important thing. And so a simple friendship issue, it's about actually having our young people skilled up to know how to navigate that themselves. And we know that they may just not know how to do that instantly and by themselves. We have to walk through it. Perhaps for young people, solving a friendship issue is getting online and making a post to the online world about how frustrated they're feeling. And of course, that's not the right way of doing things. It's about sitting with young people, working through the issue, working with families if we need to, having pastoral care staff. Every student at Lourdes has a pastoral care teacher who they see every morning and start the day that way. Pastoral care teachers know our kids really well. So the pastoral care teacher can help with a friendship issue. Then, of course, we have a whole bunch of support people like myself, like Learning Enhancement, like our counsellor, like our chappie, who can all help with those social things in an ongoing way in particular. So that's our approach to friendship issues when they come up, because they will.
So another question here, and you probably touched on this, but if my child is struggling socially, can you help? And I think to add to that question is, what if my child is struggling socially, but they're not sort of showing it? They're turning up, they've got quite a confidence about them, and you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. How do we navigate that, and how do we achieve success with those students that maybe don't have the ability to speak up?
Absolutely. So first of all, we want parents to make contact with us, and the pastoral care teacher is a great first point of contact. If you're not sure, if something's a little off, if there's been a change to behaviour, pastoral care is the first person to make contact with, which is a great way to get the ball rolling and maybe coordinating with all of your young person's teachers if they're noticing changes or struggles that might be there. So please come and work with us and see us. But from a child's perspective, if they know that something just isn't right, or they're concerned about anything for themselves or for even a friend, we have a wonderful resource available to us called Stymie, which hopefully you've heard about before. But Stymie is an online anonymous reporting platform. Our young people know all about it and how to access it. They can access it any time of day and go online and report something. I'm not feeling too great about myself today. It could be something like that, for example. They can do that anonymously, or they can put their name to it, which is helpful, or they can put the names of other people that we might be able to speak to and work through the matter with. So we have Stymie, which is a wonderful resource for our young people, but hopefully all our students at Lourdes know that they can also drop teachers an email, go and see a teacher after class, and that we're here to help, and here to help them actually understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling, because sometimes they might not know, but we can help them start to put a few pieces together and work through it together.
So just one other question. Can you just go through the team? So it's not just a one-person approach with a lot of these cases. So can you just work through the team and who they are, and if parents are wanting to know who to reach out to, who the best person is?
Absolutely. Like I said, the best person is always the child's pastoral care teacher, and that's who they start the day with every day. So that's a great place to start. Pastoral care teacher then has access to all types of support, and usually what we find with young people is it starts somewhere, but then it might become something else. So a particular behaviour that might be a concern actually might end up being a learning need. The young person is actually struggling with their learning, but that's coming out in particular behaviours, or not wanting to go to a particular class, or not completing homework. It's important to remember that behaviour is actually communication. And one of my favourite sayings is, let's be curious, not furious. Let's work out what's actually going on here, so it's not a band-aid fix, but we're actually journeying with young people to become the best that they can be. So the pastoral carer then has a whole team of support around them. They of course have me as pastoral care coordinator. They have Amy. Lots of a trend that we're noticing with our senior school students is for most 10, 11 and 12 young people, nines as well, is actually when we start to dig a little deep, it all comes back to, where am I heading? I'm worried about this. I don't know my options and I'm freaking out, which I think is really interesting. So Amy is really valuable, and Stephen as well. We then also have Kerry Grock, who's our school counsellor. We have Chappie Andy. We have Leah Coombs, who champions our learning support team. We have our LE Hub here at the senior school, which is a great environment, and that's where Stephen and Amy's offices are as well, where young people, if they're not sure of something, they can either head to student services at the top of the school or the senior school hub. And that's a great welcoming environment where young people can go and have some time out, get some help, have a cup of tea and a bicky and talk to someone if they need to, and actually work out what do we need, take a breather, have a few breaths and actually work out what's going on. Maybe it is we need to call mum and dad and have someone come in and have a bigger conversation. No matter what it is, we've got a support team that will walk alongside our young people and families to get the best result.
I saw 2 Year 12s get a cup of tea made for them today.
How good's that?
And they got a cookie.
Yep. How good's that? Well,
Very good.
Well, sometimes problems can just be solved by, if you haven't had brekkie in the morning, coming, getting yourself sorted, getting in the right headspace to go on with your learning for the day.
Yeah, good one. Thanks, Laura.
Laura, we've got a great camping program
We do.
at the school, and I think we've got some really unique opportunities for students to engage in camps that they probably wouldn't experience anywhere else.
Yep.
And there's some great information on that on the website, and you can access that video by clicking on the link to take you to the camping program. But I know that some students experience anxiety around going on camps and being away from their families. How do you approach that kind of challenge for students so that they get an opportunity to be able to still take part in a program, even if they're feeling nervous about being involved in the camps?
Absolutely. Again, going back to this idea of we're a community, in the lead up to a camp, what we want from our young people and from families is if they're worried about something, please let us know. It doesn't have to be that the child just isn't coming on camp or isn't going to be part of that experience. We want to understand what's going on, and we will work with the family and the young person to come up with a different arrangement, whatever it might be, coming up to camp just for a day and seeing how that might play out, and then extending the stay if you feel comfortable. We're very flexible when it comes to those things. I think we do a great job of sitting with our cohorts of students in the lead up to camps and actually really explaining what the camp is all about. So this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. I know we play video clips of previous camps so that our young people can get a sense of, I know what this is actually all about and what I'm walking into. We also sometimes have older students come and do sharing about the camps so that young people can ask questions about different things that might be worrying them. We find that our students love our camps and think that they're great experiences. And I know that for Miss Hoff, when she's talking to Year 12s at the end of their time at Lord's, camps is one of the things that they always talk about, because it's this idea of coming together as a group and being with people, which is really, really important, and doing something that I wouldn't have had the chance to do otherwise, whether it's the Flying Fox at Year 7 camp, or whether it's cooking for yourself on a stove on Year 10 camp, or whether it's walking the streets of Brisbane City and learning about homelessness in Year 9, or with our seniors, our Year 11s and 12s, our senior retreat, going down to Tallabudgera and getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to see the sunrise together, which has happened every year that we've done it. That's optional, but everyone gets up and does it, because it's about being together. It's about doing something that we wouldn't normally do together. So I think those things are really beautiful and a really important part of who we are here at Lord's and how we do things. And I know for our staff as well, we love going on those camps and experiencing it with our kids as well, because we're with them and we want great things for them.
Good one.
We do have another question, and actually it's a great segue from what you were just speaking about, Ms. Robbins. The question is, interested to hear if there are any extra life skills taught to the students at Lord's, such as first aid, CPR, interview skills, etc., given that camps add another dimension to the education here. Great question.
Yeah.
Absolutely, really good question. I might throw to Stephen and Amy to talk about CPR and interview questions with regards to work experience. I will just add that in terms of life skills, we do run a program called the Body, Mind and Soul program here at Lord's for Years 7, 8 and 9. And that's more relational life skills, I guess, about how to work with people and how to know yourself and how to work well with others. We do also throw in some life skills there and get our young people to change a car tyre, learn about good hygiene, learn how to prepare good food for themselves, iron, do all those sorts of things. We have a bit of fun with it, but we do also look at those types of life skills as well as part of that program.
For things like CPR, we've got a number of opportunities there. The students all engage in the core PE program
Yep.
right up to the end of year 10, and there are a number of times during that process where students have opportunities to learn about things like CPR and life saving, and they do at the moment in sport and rec in year 11 and in
Yep,
year 11
that's right.
they're doing the bronze medallion
Excellent.
at the moment.
They're
and-
also doing their first aid and a level 1 coaching course.
Yeah, so there's a number of opportunities for students to learn those kinds of skills. Students also can do the PE elective in years 8, 9, 10, and then obviously they can choose HPE as a subject in year 11 and 12, and a lot of those units, as they work their way through, have opportunities for students to do some of those things. We do a study skills program with the students in year 10 and year 11, where they can learn a lot about those things to do with like the way that memory works, the way that brain works, neuroscience around establishing long-term memory and about getting students to move things into the long-term memory, and so study skills around how to do that kind of stuff so that they can then access that information effectively when they're doing their exams. And that's a really important study skill, which I guess for the students who are on those kinds of pathways is a really important life skill.
Absolutely. And also part of the careers program is that for year 10s we do sessions fortnightly, and one of the things that we do with the students that year is bring in an external provider that comes in and works with them to look at things like their cover letters, their resumes, their interview skills and techniques. And the students have an opportunity to really workshop who they are, what they can showcase about themselves in those documents, what it means to meet and greet an employer, what interview skills are, all those sorts of things. We also do what we call the Polish program with our year 10s, and we actually go in on an excursion with all the year 10s in 2 separate groups, and we go into businesses. So last year we went into a law firm and a financial services business. So we got to go into the city in one of their high rises, and they set us up in a boardroom. And it was really interesting when we arrived. They had the students line up, and the facilitator introduced herself to every person. So put her hand out, this was pre-COVID, shook hands, all that sort of thing, and took a few notes and introduced himself, and all the students came in. And then afterwards she was able to say, you know, I learnt so much from just that simple introduction. So from a strong handshake to eye contact, to the students that she could see standing at the door making sure their shirt was tucked in properly and that their laces were all done up, that were actually trying to make themselves look presentable. And she was able to showcase to the students that a first impression is really important, and they got a lot just out of that really small activity, and especially because it came from someone in the business, in the industry, who interviews people day in, day out. It was actually really beneficial and gave perspective to those students about what employers are looking for. So they're all life skills as well that come from our programs.
I think one of the other life skills that we found we needed to work on with students was making phone calls.
Oh,
Because
They
we
really
got
struggle,
to work
yeah.
experience and said to the students, you need to phone an employer and have a conversation with them. And
it was tough. We
we
scaffolded
realised,
the
we've
conversation and
actually got a
everything for
script.
them.
There's
Yeah.
a script in the work experience booklet which the students can use to help them to actually make a phone call, because so many of them don't ever make phone calls. You know,
So
when we were
true.
kids, we answered the phone at home,
Yeah,
and
that's
we used
it.
to doing that. Students now text.
Yeah, they
well,
do.
no, texting is even outdated and old-fashioned for students,
Yeah.
but you know, so that's one of the other life skills
It
that
is.
we work on.
It is, and I think what I'm trying to tell the students when they're saying, look, I'd really like to find a traineeship or an apprenticeship, and I sort of say, first things first, don't get mum to call or dad to call. They want to hear from you. But better still, turn up at reception, ask to speak to the manager, be well presented and introduce yourself, because that's going to speak volumes to an employer, and that's going to show them that you are keen and that you've taken the time to really prepare yourself and introduce yourself to really make the best impression. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions, Lisa?
I think we've just, one is, how do we make new students feel welcome in our community?
That's a great question. We've got a number of things that we do with students. I might talk about the new student orientation.
Totally.
Because that's a great opportunity for students to come in. We know that for students, the things that they're worried about are things like where am I going to find the tuck shop? What if I need to go to the toilet? Which toilets am I allowed to go to? Yeah. They're things that for us probably don't seem like they're a big deal, but for students, they really are. And so we have a great a day when we invite in the new students where they can come, they can move around through some of the different classes, they can meet some students who are already at the school, they can talk to kids about how they've moved into the secondary school in particular, for the kids moving into year 7, because coming up from year 6 at Lords into year 7 is a challenge for some kids as well. So coming in from our schools outside is obviously a challenge too. So that new student orientation is a great opportunity for the kids to work out where some of those things are and just move around the school and feel a little bit familiar with some of the facilities and some of the places where things are. I think a lot of kids worry about rules and about breaking rules, and so it's important that we can kind of show them where where are you allowed to sit, where do you eat, where do you put your gear, where are the lockers. Those sorts of logistical things are a fairly big deal, so it's good to kind of cover those things then. It's also a great opportunity that day for us to have a new parent orientation, and we'll chat to parents about some of their concerns as well at the same time as the kids are moving around through the school, meeting other kids there. And that day is also a great chance for kids to put some names to some faces, so that when they start on their first day at the beginning of the new term, they've got some kids that they already know, and I think that can make an enormous difference to how a kid feels about coming to school and starting fresh in a new place. We also have, on the day before, if a student's starting at the very beginning of the year, we have another new student orientation where those kids can come in and meet their pastoral care teacher. And I think that is a really important opportunity as well. Did you want to talk a little bit about that session and what goes on there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really important time for, again, the new student to feel really comfortable, ask any questions, but also for the pastoral care teacher to actually get to know this young person. What are you interested in? What are you most looking forward to about coming to school, so that we can help plug them into the right sort of group or the right sort of students that they would connect with. Help them feel comfortable about the subjects, where your locker is going to be, what the student diary looks like. All of those sorts of things is really valuable in taking away that kind of first difficult conversation with a rocking up new school, going to a classroom, opening the door, and there's a teacher. Having this meeting beforehand is really good in just taking away that challenge, because we get that coming to a new school is a challenge. So in addition to at the start of the year having our new student orientations, we of course want new people arriving and new students arriving to our school all the time, and are always welcome at any point throughout the year. And it's not just welcoming a new student, it's welcoming a new family to our community. And we will work really closely with that family to make them feel welcome. What that process normally looks like is a buddy student will meet the new student up at the office on the first day. Their buddy student will be from their pastoral care class. Buddy student will walk them down. They'll be given diaries, lockers, all of those sorts of things, timetables to get them started. And their buddy is someone that hangs with them for a little bit, walks around the school with them, takes them from class to class, and helps ease them into being a part of our community. We, of course, check in with new students in the school over their first little week or so here at Lords to see how they're going, to introduce ourselves, to see how we can help. And of course, like I said before, we make contact with families to see from mum and dad's perspective how things are going and what we can do to make that transition a little easier.
Yeah, good one.
And one of the other highlights for the kids, I think, is sometime during the first term, when we're not in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis, we like to invite the students in to have a morning tea. And we'll get the new students together and have a morning tea where we can just talk to them fairly casually about how their experience has been so far, find out whether they've got any concerns, check that they've got a good friendship group, that they've settled in, and give them a platform where they can tell us if there are any things that they're concerned about. My locker is in a funny place. Can I get a new locker? And they're not sure whether they can ask or not. And so that's a good chance for them to find out some of those things too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, last question. Do you offer academic support if a student is struggling?
Absolutely.
Yes, we do.
We've got lots of ways of supporting students if they're struggling. I think the first thing to find out is whether it's a struggle, whether they're actually struggling academically with being able to manage the content that they're learning. Is it that they're struggling with the actual writing of the task? Is it that they're struggling with conceptually what they're learning in class? Or is it that they're in the wrong subject?
Yep.
Because as they move further up through the school, as you would know, Amy, sometimes a student who's struggling academically in a subject is actually struggling because it's just not the right fit for them.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes it's more about a careers meeting than it is about getting academic support.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
if we do provide that support for a student, we work hard with them and they're still wanting to keep motoring in that subject and they really want to succeed, then there are lots of ways that we can provide support. So we've got tutorials, for example, in maths and English that run during lunchtimes. And students can access those if they're struggling with their maths or with their English. The English ones also often are tasks which are integrated across different subjects. So a student who's struggling in English may well be also able to get some support with their history assignment or their geography assignment. And so there is support there. We run a study room at lunchtime, which is staffed 4 days a week. And so students often come up there and say, I'm just having a bit of trouble with this assignment. I'm not really sure how to start. And so we're able to offer a bit of support there as well. Some students, though, still struggle even though they've got, we've given them those sorts of support structures. We've tried to see whether or not they're in the right subjects, or we've given them that additional support during the tutorials. And that's where our learning enhancement team come in as being a really important part of the picture.
Yeah.
And we can get students in touch with our learning enhancement team, and there is a great team of
they're
folk
amazing.
who work down in our learning enhancement hub,
Yep.
and they're able to give students support in informal and formal ways. And so
Yeah,
there are lots
absolutely.
of informal ways where students can come down and just ask for a bit of additional help with the task. It might be that it may actually be that they're not struggling academically. It might be that they're actually struggling with something like anxiety.
Yep. Overwhelm.
Yep, feeling
Definitely.
overwhelmed by the task. They
Yep.
might be the odd student who has left things to the last minute and got really overwhelmed by that and might need some help to just get like some organisational stuff, structuring things, writing a list, working out what needs to be done, and that can relieve a lot of that kind of stress. But sometimes it's actually that students just need help with their learning, and that's where that learning enhancement team come in as being the great supportive team that they are.
Absolutely.
And they work with students to develop individual learning plans and are able to offer a lot more support.
They can. They
once
can
we-
be in the classroom. They can. Students can go into the learning enhancement area. So there's all different ways that our learning enhancement team can come in and support your student if needed. And I think a big part of my role is, whilst I'm there to talk through possible pathways, once your student is on that pathway, I'm still keeping an eye on things. I'm still making sure that the pathway is right. And sometimes we need to rebalance it. Sometimes we need to take a little sideways look at what we've chosen, because it often works, but sometimes we need to make those changes. And I think it's really important to know that I'm constantly in contact with the subject teachers, with the pastoral care teachers, with Laura, and with the team as a whole, just to see if there's any students that might not be going so well, and we can reach out in a really informal way. We can touch base with them. We can ask if there's any extra support that they might need, because they don't always ask for help. And that's something that we're watching and that we keep an eye on, and we find that we're very often making sure that all the students that are needing the support have got it.
Totally.
Do we have any more questions, Mrs. Martin?
That's about it for us tonight.
No more questions. Well
Well done.
This has been a first for us.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us on this little journey. A shout out to Brett Grigg from Synergy Video, who's helped us with the technology tonight. Thanks heaps, Brett. We'd also like to just thank you for joining us. We're really glad that there have been some people online. We've had
Absolutely.
some questions.
Yeah.
I really encourage you to access some of those resources that have also been posted. The videos, which go into a lot more detail about things like our structure at Year 7, our curriculum at Year 8 and 9, what we do in Year 11 and 12, camps, sport, pastoral care, careers, pathways. There is an enormous amount of information there. Again, a reminder that our booklets for our elective programs and our Year 11 and 12 programs, those are all accessible there too. I'd encourage you to click on those buttons that you've got underneath this video at the moment. The submit an inquiry, book a tour, enrol now. If you've seen something tonight that you'd like to know more about, please submit an inquiry about that. Ask the questions. Just because we haven't answered the questions tonight doesn't mean that we can't continue answering your questions as we move forward. We will be very happy to answer any of those. And also a great way to learn about the school is to actually come in and walk around and see learning in action in the classrooms, to see the teachers in action, to meet some of the students as you walk around and to see what's going on at the school. If you'd like to book any of those appointments, you can also contact Mrs. Martin, our registrar, on 5540 8888. It's 5540 8888. She will be very happy to take you around the school because there is more to explore here at Lord's. That's our little catch line.
So true.
So please come on. And if we didn't get to your question tonight, please email it through. We will be in touch in the next few days. But for now, on behalf of our principal, Jodie Hoff, and all our staff, thanks again and have a great night.
Night, everyone.
Thank you.